when I was about 13, an extraordinary event happened. Should I tell you the story? So I am a child of Holocaust survivors. My parents survived Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. And I belonged as a kid in France, because I was born and raised in France. I belonged to a Jewish organization, and that particular organization was all children of survivors, because a lot of our parents weren't French. They could hardly even speak French. They were political refugees, for some of them. And so I used to go there, and because I was part of that organization, even though I was very young, I was only 13, and 12 and 11, because I started when I was 11, I was allowed to go there in the evening and to come home, and I had a curfew hour. My parents trusted me. In those days, you could take the subway. There wasn't, crime was not a very common thing. I had a curfew hour. Sometimes it was 11. Sometimes it was 10. It depended which night on the weekend, So I'm always going to this organization. Well, one night, I come home from the organization. I'm in the subway, and there is this couple in the subway, and they're beautiful. He's very hirsute. He's got a beard that's like coming down. He's got long hair. He's very tall. He's slender. She's got hair everywhere. I mean, they're so hairy, the two of them. And they're so beautiful. They're adults. I'm a kid. They look like they may be in their 30s or something, And I have a guitar with me. And they were asking me, because I used to play the guitar. I used to draw, play the guitar, sing, whatever kids do, theater, everything, And they asked me to play the guitar in the subway, and I was a little shy, and it's not like I was that good of a guitar player, but I could play a little. So I started playing tunes. They asked me to sing, and I wouldn't sing in the subway. It was just a little too much, even though there were hardly any people in the subway. Anyway, at some point comes my station, so I get up, but they get up too. And they are getting off at the same station as I am. And so we start walking. I'm walking towards my house, and they're walking towards the same direction. And at some point, before we get to the street where I have to turn to where I live, where my parents live, there is this giant door that looks like an antiquity. It looks like it's 300-400 years old, beautiful wooden door. It's not a fancy neighborhood at all. It's actually a very working class neighborhood. And this big door, and they stop in front of it, and they turn to me, and they're very nice, the two of them. They were asking me tons of questions. And a kid often isn't being asked any question. They're often just being told things, but the adults don't. Back then, the adults didn't ask that many questions. So they're asking me all kinds of questions. We come in front of the door, and they said, "Would you like to come in and have a cup of cocoa?" And I asked what time it was, and it was curfew. I had to be home. It was I think it was 11, and I had to be home. And for some reason, I said, "I want to come." So you got to understand that in my household, there's a lot of sadness. My parents lost everybody. And, they've got 2 kids. I'm the youngest one of the 2. And, these are very PTSD people. They're good people, but they're very PTSD. And so are we, for that matter. But that's another story. So I stop in front of the house. They open the door. When we walk in, it's like you can't see very much. It's real late. But there is light in some things. So it's like there's 2 buildings on each side with apartments, I guess. And as we get to the end of the courtyard, there's this huge house, and then there is another courtyard in the back, and they go around it, and they go down a few steps, and they open this little door, and oh my God. It's like I walked in, and even telling you this, I'm goosebumped, because it's like the most amazing sight I've ever seen. They're artists. The place is completely trashed. I mean, I walk in and there's books everywhere, there's paintings, there's the couch, there's a little couch filled with clothes on top of it, there's paintings all over the walls, there's papers on the floor. I mean, it's extraordinary. And instead of reacting like, oh my God, look at the dirt, I just thought it was so beautiful. And I felt like I just got home. I arrived home. Very bizarre feeling. When I walked out of there, it makes me want to cry. I knew I was going to be an artist, that it was just, it was cemented. That moment in that room, in that little apartment, I was only in one of the rooms, it cemented it. It was like, you get a feeling, you get somewhere, and it's like, you just feel like this is your place. This is where you belong. So I started painting. Whenever I look at somebody, I find everybody beautiful. It's a gift. I may change my mind if we start conversing, but I find everybody beautiful if I'm actually staring. I'm looking, I'm seeing your hair, your eyes, your eyebrow, your nose, your this. It's like there's a beauty in every single being. Right now, in my psyche, in how I'm working right now, it's mostly about the rhythm that every single aspect of painting holds, and how all these various rhythms create one bigger rhythm. Like there is a rhythm of shape, there's a rhythm of lines, there is a rhythm of colors, every aspect has some kind of rhythmic thing, and it creates a bigger rhythm, which is the whole picture. And I think right now that's what I'm after. That's what I'm looking at. I started school in 1976. I was there for 4 years in New York, the Art Students League of New York. And we lived in New York City until the 80s, the mid-80s. And then in the mid-80s, we decided to move to San Francisco. So we closed our place. We had a studio and we had an apartment. We actually sublet it, which was a wise thing to do. And we moved to San Francisco, and after a couple of years in San Francisco, we decided, and particularly me, I think, I decided San Francisco was just people were too healthy. People were just, walking and running and eating well and not smoking and never just talking directly to people and being intense. It just drove me nuts. I just spent 15 years in New York where, everybody is blunt and right in your face, and I love it, because I don't have to, think through and remember some bullshit. It's just who I am all the time. So I couldn't take it. So I said to Mike, I think we have to get back to New York. I'm going to go crazy here. Everybody is just way too nice and way too scary and healthy. So we came back to New York again. And then I worked in catering. Then I had my own catering business. Then I came to Maine and I cooked some more catering for a few years. And then suddenly I thought, okay, I've done this for 20 years now, this cooking. It's been great, but I'm done. I think I'm going to teach now. I'm going to teach art now. Oh, there's a little segue. In between, I decided to go to school and do, because I only went to art school, I never went to regular college. So I decided to go to college here in Maine and study philosophy. So I come out of school, I'm feeling, good in my oats because it's not just art anymore. I got a general education now, and I even studied philosophy, even read philosophy, wrote about philosophy. I'm thinking better, and my head is clearer. I'm a little more mature. I'm still very young, but I'm a little more mature. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to teach art. That's it. And so I ended up also being an art teacher, which I still am, and actually working a lot now, teaching art as well. And painting all the time, hopefully. I cannot believe I've been in Maine for 30 years. It's kind of bizarre, because I've never lived anywhere like this before. It's always... And I do think there's another place for me to move to. You know, I don't want to finish here. I want to go somewhere else. In fact, I'm ready to go right now. You guys want to go?
Yeah.